Welcome, everybody, to Fountains of Truth. Today, we are going to talk about the product of America. I am Joanna, and we have RL and Keith in the house. How's everyone doing?
Doing good. Doing well, I should
Amazing.
say.
Amazing.
We're surprised we're still here. We're not canceled yet, actually. So I think we keep challenging the status quo and asking deeper questions and waiting for that first person to retaliate with their opinion. But as we do, we're going to have three different perspectives about the same subject, same questions, seen in different ways, and just see what happens. So hopefully this should help you look outside the box and see things differently. But what are we going to talk about as far as product of America? What does that look like, RL?
Well, when I was thinking of, the fact that we are still here, I don't think we're like deliberately trying to push the limits. I just think that's naturally how we are. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like, I feel
And
like
people just don't like it.
and every week we're going to come to the table with another topic and, it's going to be kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? But like product of America is basically like, if we think about society and we think about our community from a national perspective, like what type of people does America produce? You know what I mean? Like as these generations, continue on, at the end of the day, America's a pretty new nation. And based on the systems that are in place and everything within society, if we kind of stepped out and looked at it from like a macro point of view or a extroverted point of view, like if we looked at it, what type of people do you think America produces? So I thought that would be a great topic to get into. You know what I'm saying?
I think we should ease into it yeah, really. I think we should ease into it by talking about what other countries think or say about the people in America, because that's a little bit easier to ease into, don't you think?
Well,
so I like let's clarify,
That's
right?
the
Like
lubricants.
we're going into our fourth decade, okay? And as you ask that question, I'm just kind of going, all right, if somebody asked me that question for the first time, like what would be my thought process? And for me, it's like, okay, 20 years ago, that's a different answer than 10 years ago. That's a different answer than today, right? And that's the first thing I think of is how quickly I think your definition, or at least my definition of that, has changed in the last 20 to 30 years, drastically.
and why? Why such drastic changes? Because I venture to say that if you go to other developed countries, the majority of them wouldn't have an answer like that. Like they'd probably be, there'd be some changes, but it wouldn't be drastic. Why does America seem to have these drastic changes? And I think that's where you got to get to the root of it all. To kind of answer what you were saying, Joanna, as far as from other countries, it's hard to speak from that vantage point because what I'm saying, I haven't spoken with too many. Like I know some people from other countries. Like one of my best friends is from Croatia. My sister's lived in Puerto Rico most of her life. While that's still a part of America, it's kind of like the redhead stepchild of America. So it's kind of hard to see it from there. Like you might have more experience in that. I know that I'm sure you have family in Colombia, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know.
So is the ball being thrown back at me?
Yeah, I think
what's happening?
we're kind of playing hot potato a
I'll
little
take it.
bit.
Look, I'll run point right now. Fuck it. I'll run point. Like I'm not Mr. Worldwide. I'm not Pitbull. We haven't been to many places, but I've been to enough places to sort of, I think, establish a viewpoint, a vantage point, right? For this topic. And to me, I think and I'm gonna sound Republican, but I really think it's the family structure, right? It's tradition. That unit, I feel like, as it's become more isolated and as it's broken down, the strength of America, which was its diversity, is starting to become such a melting pot that all the ingredients have become the same and we've lost the differentiation. And I think that's...
You've lost me completely.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, but I wanna challenge you real quick on the diversity part. Like Like,
You want it to be more segregated?
no, I don't think that's
No,
what
I
I'm
don't.
saying. No,
Okay.
No.
like
No.
the strength of America being its diversity, but it's almost like the diversity is what caused America to become what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like a certain
Yeah.
demographic, kind of lost its stronghold on things, and they kind of went to drastic measures to create this massive separation that has kind of put us where we are today. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We're saying the same thing.
Say, yeah, right. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
I'm totally with that one,
Well,
but it's
okay.
fine.
Well,
Sorry.
I'll keep it simple. Since I kind of came up with the idea of talking about this today, this is what kind of sparked this for me. So there was another mass shooting that just happened recently. They seem to happen, every other month for a myriad of different reasons, which we will probably get into. But it's like when you dissect it and you think about it. So there's a couple different ways you can come out on it. You can come out on it one way and say, okay, there's just some mentally ill people out there that do some drastic shit, right? That's one opinion. There's another opinion that says, well, this might have been a false flag because there's so much political shit tied in to guns and gun laws in this country and whatnot. Maybe that's tied to it, and that because the mass shooting that happened prior to that had to do with a transsexual individual, and we've talked about that agenda that's going on. So it could be a political thing. Then we can go even further and say, oh shit, maybe it's a fucking mind control thing. They're mind controlling these people to do this shit, to cause all this, to cover up whatever else is going on. So regardless of which route you go, at the end of the day, the answer is a product of America, right? Mental health. Why would people get to that point where they would take an AR-15 and just randomly go into a place and start shooting people, right? The political divide. Why is there such division within the diversity of this country? You know what I'm saying? Or the false flag and fucking mind control shit. Like, we live in a place with the veil over our head and don't realize what's truly going on. So that is kind of what sparked this conversation. So I'm going to lay it up for y'all and see what y'all got to say about any of that.
I know that the false flag thing is a touchy subject for a lot of people because of the initial impact of why would anybody do this? And, that's just out of control. It really sparks the movie, The Truman Show. Like, is this really all a stage? We started paying attention when the Orlando shooting started happening. And we were down in Florida and everywhere was the hashtag, something Orlando. And we were like, man, they work fast. They came up with all these billboards in like a day, and all these things are like
24 to 48 hours,
how
bro.
can they
Shit
come up
is
with all
going
that?
up. Like, I don't think that happens in a normal, like, if you and I call up and want a billboard up, I don't think that's happening, right? I mean, maybe it's the government.
I don't
Maybe
know,
it's
but
superpowers.
it was just so much, and we were like wondering how, that we're in business. How did they pull this off business wise? Usually you have to plan for such, who's going to come up with the hashtag and marketing.
It takes a city 10 weeks to fix a fucking pothole.
But in 24 hours, less than that, you have things all over the place marketing this thing. And I'm like, whoa. Then there was the Nevada shooting, and we were there too. Remember, in Las Vegas?
From the Mandalay Bay.
For convention. We were in convention, yeah.
I'm sure we were on a watch list then.
Bro, I don't know, but we kept going from place to place, and we're like, what's going on? This doesn't feel right. And the closer you are, you can kind of discern for yourself. But we started going down that rabbit hole and the whole Sandy Hooks and, everything, and started noticing the patterns, because that's kind of what that's what I tend to do my entire life, is just pay attention to the patterns. Every political freaking... the year of when you vote, presidential, whatever year, I can't even get those words out because I think I'm allergic to them. But basically, those years, you would have tons of, gun shooting this and the guns that, and we need to take them away from the people because they're not safe. And, you just hear it and it becomes like, here we go again, another election year with more gun stuff and gun control, that you start kind of looking down those rabbit holes and going, okay, what are false flags? Why is this politically connected? Then you start looking at the media, right? The media is the one that's passing or communicating this fear onto America. And if you look at America as a whole, the way I'm going to look at it, if you ask me what type of people does America produce, those that are watching TV programs are programmed. We have a lot of programmed people in America. Why? Because it's like we're just consuming information from these programs that are all funneling the same narrative story for their whatever agendas. So if you were going to ask me, I think that a bunch of followers, like what happened to the leaders? What happened to they all got killed, I guess. All those that want to, that really know what's up and want to like stand up for the truth and talk about it. What happens to them, right? We end up with just the followers. And that's when you said all the separation and all the people everybody that came to make America. Now it's just, they're all the same. It's like, I feel like a factory of, creating these like factory people through social media. Like, you all have to look this way. Oh, this is what everybody's lips look like now. And this is how everybody's makeup looks like now. And it's like, what? Like, what are we doing? And at the same time, I'm going to say a very unhealthy freaking America. Like, when you go to other countries, you don't see that much overweightness. I don't know how else to put it. Like you do here. And that is just visible where, like, just from where we've gone, like, period.
I think too, like, and again, I don't know this, I'm just spitfiring here, right? Like, when you think about when we were kids, that's when the sugary cereals sort of took hold, right? Early 80s. Now, I'm pretty sure there's probably a correlation between that and ADHD and everything else that happened in the 90s, right? Because diet is what you attack diet and you fuck a kid's diet and development up and all that stuff. You fuck development up and just everything that happens in those important years. And you're eating, Eggos and Lucky Charms and shit. And that's an accepted breakfast. That's where it started. And then from there, I think, you start having
Pop-Tarts,
the proliferation of ADHD. And then now you're throwing pharmaceuticals in and you've just created this breakdown of something is wrong with you, not let me teach you the way. Right?
We're sick, and compared to a lot of countries, if you look, I don't have the stats sickest. Right now, but
we're the sickest.
Yeah, we already did this on health, right? And we saw that, and you said that we were one of the sickest. So that is a byproduct.
We're not only the sickest from a dietary standpoint and from a mortality standpoint, we're also the sickest from a mental health standpoint. So, like, if you look at mental health statistics, right, the highest, America has the highest rate of mental health illness, or I should say mental illness, out of all the developed countries, right? It also has the highest suicide rate amongst the wealthy countries, right? So you start to look at these things, right? And look, I don't know about you guys, but growing up, like, because we're born here, you got that tribalism, and you hear how great America is through the programming of TV and how this is the land of the free and the land of opportunity, and everybody wishes they were in America and whatnot. And look, we do have some things that some other countries don't. At least when we were growing up, that was the case. But now so many of these other countries are catching up to us and have passed us that story is done. Like that's a facade now. That shit is not real when you break it down. If we're the least healthy, have the worst mortality rate, the worst rate of mental health, the worst suicide rate, and then you add in, we have the highest amount of homicides out of any wealthy and developed country. And out of all the mass shootings that have happened in the world in the past 10 years, 70% of them happen in America. 70% of them. So you start to add these things up, and it's like, okay, what type of like what are we really creating? What who you said these people were programmed, right?
Fear-based
Look, man.
people. Fear-based
Yeah,
people.
you guys remember that show House?
Yes.
Remember that show House?
House,
You ever watch that?
I think so. Is that the House MD or some shit?
House with the doctor.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
doctor,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he has to like figure out people's like weird diseases and shit based on their
Right.
symptoms. Look, man, it all goes back. It all goes back to this. Comes down to this. Everything. Diet creates issues. It creates the gut imbalance. You got bad fucking gut. You got bad hormones. You got bad endorphins. Ultimately, this is all a path to block and calcify the pineal gland. That's what it is. If you have a calcified pineal gland, you know, picking up a gun and shooting somebody, like that connection, you've severed and weakened the connection so much that that's not an issue. It's not about that. You, me, my ego is more important than the masses, is more important than mass consciousness at that point, which is a disconnection issue.
Right, right.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think they get somebody who has mental health. They do the whole MK Ultra shit. They do some whole false flag crap. That doesn't mean that people don't get hurt. It just means that there's an ulterior motive and a bigger agenda to it. But if you look up, it's not that hard to find people that are being hired for these events that they call them. They have them. There's people that have been to so many of the same events, and they still use the same people. And once you start looking at this, it's like, how did I miss this? But anyway, I think that it's all of that. You know, you have mental health, you have the fear, you have the false flags, you have their agenda. You put it all together, and you have what we have today. And then you add the media adding their narrative to the story, and boom.
You know, but let me ask, do you guys think it's because programming happens everywhere? I mean, you go to France, they got programming. You go to the UK, they got programming. You know, they got Australia. You know, you can't, you know, the entire damn country of Australia or shit continent, in the country and the continent, right? Yeah, is fucking vaxxed. You know what I'm saying? The entire country of Canada vaxxed. You know what I'm saying? So like, you look at that, and I almost feel like because America produces so many spoiled children, you know, because like we were advanced at a certain point, and the generations that we've, you know, brought up have become so spoiled that they're even more easily manipulated. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know if they have those values or that appreciation or that connection, like you said, Keith, to like what is real. You know what I mean?
They weren't part of the wild, wild west.
Yeah. It's nuts to me because like, okay, you take this specific, and I mean, we're not gonna sit here and break down every fucking mass shooting but there are patterns. Like this one in particular, you got a fucking Hispanic dude, Mexican dude, who they're saying is a white supremacist. Like, and I'm not saying that can't happen. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that that's just completely outlandish, but like you attach these labels to this individual who did a heinous crime, right? And all of a sudden now, not only is it a gun issue, that now you got a hate issue, which they attach it to the Proud Boys, which they attach that to Donald Trump. Then all of a sudden, okay, now it's attached to the Republican Party because of guns, because of white supremacy, because of Donald Trump, because of the Proud Boys. Okay, you got 4 labels right there that ultimately,
it's a script.
Yeah, ultimately now has divided the country. Instead of focusing on the actual crime that happened, they're focused on why they think it happened. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of
like
what America
religion.
does. It is.
I got a question. All right, so the family structure. That was my original opening argument, the family structure. Now, in the average American home 30 years ago, 40 years ago, do you think that if something were to happen, if a house were to get robbed into, do you think that there was more community involvement then? Or do you think there was more community, or there's less community involvement now? In other words, how much more disconnected from other people are families today versus
Hell
30,
yeah.
40, 50 years ago?
Shit.
We're connected to our social media and don't know the people down the street.
Has everyone on this call like had like you had like boys, like you had girls and they had your back? You know what that feeling's like, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That shit runs deep, man. And when your community loses that, right? And again, this is part of the process. This is part of the breakdown. This is part of the answer to the question. And kind of what I was insinuating earlier is that family isn't just my brother and my sister, right? It's also a deep community rooted aspect. And again, I think over time that's been disconnected. And the more disconnected we are from each other, the more alone we feel. And the more alone we feel, the much more manipulated we become, right? Because I can't, like, I know Bobby Sue down the street. You fuck with Bobby Sue, you fucking with me. Shit doesn't exist these days, man. I don't know I don't even know my neighbors' names. Is that my fault? Absolutely. Is it their fault? Absolutely. But that's, especially since COVID, dude. Like, people just don't talk like anymore. It was like the huge like cutting of the cord of communication. It's crazy to me.
Shit, people used to smile at you or wave or hello, and then now people just keep their eyes down.
So again, when you feel alone, you're over sugared. You're over trans fatted. You eat like shit, right? Your gut bacteria is shit. Your serotonin and everything in your brain is shit. Your pineal gland is calcified. It's nothing. You feel alone. Your ego is gonna run rampant. And we all know when you in ego, you let go. You just do some shit you would never do, right?
That's true. I mean, think about it. I mean, when's like back in the day, like people would just show up at your house. Like, hey, I was in the neighborhood, just wanted to say what's up. I mean, that shit don't happen nowadays. Somebody show up at your door, you're like, who the fuck came over? Act like you ain't home.
You ready to fight.
You know what I'm saying? like somebody ring your doorbell, it's like, what's going on? But
before it was like, who is it with lemonade?
Right. Yeah, I got some, you know what I'm saying? Give you a cold one, we could chill, whatever.
I'm drinking beer, I'm drinking lemonade.
Well, I'm taking it back a little bit. But no, you're so right, man. And we are so disconnected, like the quote unquote internet and social media, connected us as far as from a communication level, right? It furthered our reach, but it really disconnected us from an energetic level to such high extremes. And it just goes. What's that?
You cut off for a second.
Yeah, no, you did that thing where you paused, so I thought.
Okay, my bad. Well, hopefully they heard that. But. Yeah, I look at the mental health in this country, and it's everything. It's the vaccines, it's the shitty foods, it's the disconnection, it's the lack of like parenting values, man. Like parenting, like you were the biggest influence on your kids, bar none. More than school, more than TV, because you can actually control those things within your household. But if you don't, and most of these parents today don't, they're so worried about what they got going on, through other reasons, systemic reasons, societal reasons, things like that too, that they allow their kids to be raised by the outside world. And the outside world, this is what it's producing. It's producing laziness, just the disconnection, not understanding how to communicate with other people, not feeling the onus to be able to express their emotions. So they bottle that shit until a point where you explode, and then you see things like this happen.
Well, yeah, and it again, why, right? What's the end all be all reason? What do I get out of that if I create a society like that? I create a society that becomes so easily manipulated.
Yep.
Right? Like if I have a teenager who is starved to feel like a man, even though he feels so probably weak, because it just seems like that's how our kids are being raised, right? Skating on thin ice with that one. but you know, like they're raised in a sense that I lost my fucking train of thought. It's like it just totally went the fuck away. I got scared when I said that, and I was like, oh shit, I need to shut up.
Watch what I'm saying.
Like, I'm about to offend. Somebody's gonna take that shit the wrong way. Fuck.
You know, doing these are hard. Like we're putting ourselves out there completely, like the way we think. You know, everything.
Oh, I remember now.
Go ahead. Yay.
Yeah, so
that
like,
always happens.
so like kids, man, like they want to become something, right? Like they want to become Michael Jordan. They want to become LeBron James because they're manipulated into thinking that that's how everybody lives. So that's, you got a shot, you know, to be the top 0.001%. Good for you, right? So they're empty. And when you're empty and you can be manipulated, you have a dictator, you have a government that can come along and basically just manipulate the fuck out of you, and you can create that within a generation or two. It happened in Germany, right?
Schools.
You can do it very quickly under the right circumstances. And it just seems like those circumstances are becoming more and more apparent, and it's like we're less than a generation away. It seems like, based on our current trajectory, to me. Scary, you know?
It is. It's extremely scary.
You never know.
You don't, but like, I don't know, man. I don't know. What's scary is
I mean, we know that darkness takes us to the light eventually, right?
We do. No, I can totally dig that. But if we're speaking like this lifetime, like,
oh,
I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's going to happen, you know, in future generations. I mean, I guess the other side of it is I do feel like the youth is a lot more open-minded, which is always a good thing, especially when we're talking from a spiritual sense. You know, spirituality has come to the forefront and has actually challenged things like organized religion. That's always a good thing. You know, but at the same time, with everything else, it gets diluted by the systems that are put in place as well. You know, and then now you have something that is sacred, that is a personal thing, like you always talk about, Keith, like your personal spiritual journey, you know, is being diluted because, you know, corporations are trying to implement it into their shit. You know what I mean? So I will say this, like when we talk about endgame agenda, like I'll even take it another step, because when you see things like mass shootings, what does it do to the average person? Oh, well, I just don't want to go out anymore. I don't want to go to the mall and go shopping. I don't want to go watch a movie in the theater. Just like COVID did the same thing, right? So now they're separating people even more, that the fact that, okay, why do I need to go to Nordstrom's to buy something? I'll just go online and buy it. They can ship that shit to me. I can go on Amazon and buy it. They'll just ship that shit to me. And what it does is it keeps everybody in close-knit proximity. And ultimately, they want to create these smart cities where everything's in close-knit proximity. And, you know, just really, really attack our sovereignty amongst this world. And the easiest way to do that is create a reason why you don't want to go out in the first fucking place.
Not to mention the anxiety that happens, like with the kids, for example. So speaking of all these events that have been happening today, there was a threat of a bomb, a high school bomb or whatever at my daughter's school. So, you know, she's texting and calling me, and she's like, we're all outside. They evacuated, you know, the building, and
hold on. I got a question for both of you. It's question night.
Okay.
If there's a fucking bomb in a building, how far away from the building you think you're going to walk to feel safe?
I don't know, but they were pretty
Just
damn
saying.
close.
How far?
I would have walked way farther.
I'm not within 50 feet of a building.
I was saying, I'm not going to stop walking.
You know? Right. Like, I need to be...
Well, they were all just right out there, all dandy. And I pulled up like I do. And I'm like on the phone with my daughter, like, where are you? I'm pretty much right here. Like, come in. And the teachers were like, you're going to have to go over here to check her out. And I'm like, get in the car. And then they're all yelling at me because I got her in the car. Like, it's my child. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to get her in the car and I'm going to go. And then, yes, I'm going to, you know, whatever, what's it called? Let her out or check her out. But I'm not going to leave her there. Like, the point is that I came to get her, and therefore I will. And the rest of the kids that are sitting there and that are just waiting to check and see that everything is safe and effective have really become so trustworthy of those words, sarcastically, but they're all scared. They're all anxious. Then they're just, oh, everything is safe, so come back in the building. You think they're going to be doing their tests and whatever else without thinking there might be a bomb that they missed, that you know what I'm saying? All these thoughts that are going on. Like, she stayed out the rest of the day.
Have they ever caught the person that has ever done this? Because I feel like that shit never comes up after the fact, right? Like, you never find out who made the phone call. It just goes away, and it's never talked about again, right. Which is a little suspect if you ask me, right? But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like let's just use the word stage, just because we're gonna we're gonna look from a different perspective, right? A different vantage point. This is staged. We're gonna do a bomb drill, but we're not gonna call it that. Right now,
and even if it was staged, I still wanted to get her out.
I would love to talk to the principal of the school, and maybe he knows about trajectory and bombs and things and certain placements, and how standing 15 feet away from a building that's about to explode is safe. Right. and you're creating an environment that's safe for my kids. Help me fucking understand that, because what it looks like when you drive up on it, I've been right. Like, tell me if this didn't look like it was some sort of like drill. Right? Like, it was a practice run.
Yeah, everybody was chilling. Right?
It's like a fucking practice run. So is it fake or is it not? I don't fucking know, but it doesn't.
There was helicopters.
It does not seem like it's truly for the safety of the children if they're standing within 15 feet. It's just like the vaccine, right? Like, come on, man. It's an illusion for something else, possibly. And that is huge in the psyche of a child that, again, that is already ate like shit for the most part, is on Ritalin or some other form of pharmaceutical. How much more ability to program their mind are they? Like, you're just seeping and seeping and seeping into their subconscious. They're gonna need
that medicine the medicine that goes on top of the other medicine because of all the anxiety,
Xanax
from all this stuff.
You know, and then you go home, and what are the parents like? Same right? Shit. Do they can they have heartful conversations with their kids? I mean, are they reading books on how to manage stress because of things like? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's just being a parent, man.
It's like just become too common as far as these shootings and the school things. Like, this wasn't even a thing back then. Yeah. Back in the day,
it's
like,
not
when
a thing
did this
in the
even
world.
begin?
Like, Columbine, wasn't that the big one? The big one, Columbine. You know what I'm saying? And then that time, the thing was, okay, let's blame it on video games or rap music, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was the political angle then. And you see how things have progressed as far as the blame game goes. But the added aspect to all that, you know, is fear. Because we're implanting this fear into these kids that these things are a possibility that can happen. So now they're scared, right? They got that underlying fear. They go home to mom and dad, and they even got more fear because they're more attached to the Fox News and the CNNs and all that bullshit. So it's just a household full of fear. It's generations full of fear. And now we have a society that's full of fear. And the easiest way to manipulate people is to mess with their emotions. And, you know, besides love, the opposite, you know, with polarity is fear, right? You know, obviously it's hate, but fear on one side, love on the other. They're going to play on our fears, and that's how they help. That's how they manipulate. That's how they basically hijack the mind, plain and simple.
Yeah, man. I mean, you opened up talking about, you know, what how other countries view Americans, right? And I mean, you know, I don't mean to disrespect the president of the United States. I mean, I just think it's apparent. I mean, if you coherently can't hold together sentences, I mean, I'm not even gonna get into all the other stuff, right?
Right.
Like like there was a point in time where I felt like the office of the presidency was, you know, it meant something, and maybe it didn't. I don't know. I mean, depending on what background you are and where you come from, you know, you probably feel differently about that. But the point is that, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, there was a presidential stature. Yeah. And it's like that shit's been disintegrated. And if I'm China and I'm the Soviet Union, I'm like, yo, this shit is working. Like, these are some dumb motherfuckers. They got this type of dude running their country. I mean, they keep talking about 5th and 6th generation warfare, man. TikTok goes on and on and on. You know, the proliferation of foods and the shit that's coming from, you know, the whole food shit and getting their food from China. And, there's just statistics after statistics of shit that's China driven. We buying shit for China for how long? For how many years, man? Right?
Oh man.
And what if it's just been a slow drip? Drip.
Look, like, I mean, and it all ties together. Joanna, you're the best at telling people how everything is connected systemically, because everything that's going on with inflation and then the possible collapse of the dollar and the Chinese yuan ultimately trying to take over, you start putting all these pieces together, you step back for a second, you're like, oh shit, okay, it all makes sense. Because you have a president that the day of a mass shooting where kids were killed, you know what I'm saying? Kids were killed, has the nerve to make a statement with a political angle behind it. The president. This isn't, a senator in fucking Delaware, you know what I'm saying? Or some mayor in fucking North Dakota. Right. Even still. But we're talking about, quote unquote, the leader of the free world has an angle on his tweet after a tragedy where, they're obviously the families are devastated and people are scared and all these things. Like, that just shows you the mindset of America. Because if the highest rank, quote unquote, highest ranked authority individual is doing that, then just imagine what's going on in the average household. You got half the people, worried about fucking gun laws. You got the other half saying you ain't gonna take my fucking guns. And that's what it becomes about at the end of the day. And look, I pretty much, we're never political on this show, but, it ain't got shit to do with guns, ever.
And it's not even a political thing. It's beyond the political. It's the string masters that are, the ones that are pulling these puppets. Circus. Yeah, there's so much to it. The root, if you go to the root of it, it's just the very few that are controlling the many. And you do that through the media. You do that through politics. You do that through a lot of things. And, many people get offended when you talk about this. As if, I don't know, like that you want to shoot the fucking messenger. It's like, look, we're just telling you what's there and what's out there and what's going on and why it's done. And if you start really looking at the patterns and you start really doing your own research, you'll see what I'm talking about. You see what we are talking about.
Let me lay this out for you guys because I want to hear your response. Because this is what I think about. My philosophy, I try to keep everything basic as fuck, right? Make it simple. Keep it simple. Mm-hmm. Like, we've been around, we've had friends, we've met people throughout our entire lives, 4 decades worth, right? And we understand empathy, we understand apathy. We've probably been around some people that were a little shady. We probably know some people who have done some things. You know what I mean? When you think of some of these like absolute heinous crimes where people don't even really truly have a motive for the individuals' lives that they're taking, but it's more on some other shit. Like, have you ever met anybody that you feel that could do something like that?
Oh shit! Can I go?
Yeah, go.
All right, man. I tell Joanna this all the fucking time. Okay, let me say this. Let me get this right. Under any circumstance, right? If you put yourself in the right circumstance, you are capable of anything. Okay, so you ain't special and they're not fucked up because it just so happened that something happened to them that put them in that position to make that decision, and it's everybody's fucking fault, including their own, and you're just as capable as they were. Okay, I truly 1000% believe that. Okay, now, again, that doesn't mean that, they could have made a left turn instead of a right turn, but still, at the core of it, got to walk in a man's shoes, right? You just don't know. And there's no way to quantify that.
There isn't, but to answer his question, no. The answer is no. I have not been around. Yes, I've been around a lot of good and bad people, but the media twists shit up more than ever. Like, I swear, if a brown cat passed by, they're going to be like, a brown bear that looked like a whatever with strange fucking paws. Like, They just fucking change everything. And so the media just messes everything up.
Like, look, I know there are monsters out there. There are people that have just done some just horrific things, you know, and I like most criminals, I say, have a code. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you look at the mafia kill, but they don't mess with with women and children. You know what I'm saying? Even thugs and hood cats, like, they have codes. But like, to literally get a semi-automatic weapon and just go in public and start spraying, like, that's no code. That is like completely, like, that is not humanistic in any form. Like, you've lost all humanity when you think about that. And now, kind of, combating what you said, Keith, like, you're right. You're right. Like we're most people are a product of their environment. And if that environment is tweaked in a certain way, we have the capabilities to do things like that. I'm just saying, I've never met anyone that I feel could get to that point. And I was just wondering if any of you have, because that's what makes, like, the ideas of mind control or false flags or pansies, all those different things come into play. Because I just can't fathom an individual doing that to that level of apathy. Now, there's sociopaths and shit like that, but they even have codes.
Look, I've met people that, have told stories of going to jail and, they killed my mom, and so we cut them up in little pieces and this and this and that. I've heard all that stuff, like, in Colombia, okay? But there's always some type of reason or retaliation for them to go to that extreme, from what I've seen. Never just for no reason.
Right, but even the mom thing, like, there's a emotional connection, like crimes of passion. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But to randomly do some shit, and I shouldn't say
right,
randomly,
that I haven't. No.
Something provoked them, but like to kill just innocent people on just for the fuck of it, basically. That's where the whole false flag and that's where the whole manipulation, mind control shit comes into play for me.
Yeah.
Like, they find just like, what's that fucking, the Manchurian candidate type shit.
Well, and too, I was going to say, man, I mean, like, you look at, when I say, like, anybody under any circumstance, it's not just, I had an abusive parent. It's not just I had a rough life. It's also what programming have I been exposed to, right? Like, what type of video games that I play that just kept ingraining, because I've listened to a few of those, I don't know like what it's on, but those mystery shows where the killers talk about it, and they always talk about it like they're in another world. You know what I mean? Like they're just completely like it's
disassociation.
They're just disassociated with what's going on, and it's almost like I'm in a video game, and it's not real until it ends, and then it's like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like, again, like that's just a couple of examples that I've seen personally, but.
And that's trauma-based, and that trauma can come down from these programs and other things. I mean, it's trauma, but we're, as a society, faking the funk. Like, we say, oh, this is all about mental health, but like, behind it, it's a paradox, because it's like we're the ones creating this mess of mental health. So it just sounds like bullshit. Like a hypocrisy, really.
That's exactly what it is.
I think to boil it down, I think if you were to ask me what type of people does America produce, I'm going to say hypocrites.
Oh. Shots fired.
Yes, I did. I'm going to drop the mic right there. Sorry.
Damn. Hypocrites.
I like it.
I like it.
Okay, then. I mean, truth. Hey.
Yeah, and I think if you're triggered by that, right? Let's take a walk down that path, because don't get it twisted. I'm a hypocrite. Joanna's a hypocrite. RL, you a hypocrite. Unless you are Christed, you're a fucking hypocrite. Okay, so we're
to all
we're
degrees,
not,
we all hypocritical in some way,
absolutely.
even to ourselves. And I'm gonna explain that real quick, because if I'm all the time getting upset at people that say they're gonna do something and end up not doing it, I'm hypocritical, because that means that they are mirroring to me the fact that I'm not doing something that I said I was going to do, whether that is eat better, exercise more, whatever it is. If I said to myself, I'm going to start doing this and I don't, guess what? A lot of people in my reality are going to start doing things and or saying things and not doing what they say they're going to do because they're mirroring that aspect of me. So what does that make me? A hypocrite. So that's basically the example of we're all hypocrites in a way, but America's just a big ass hypocrite country. Like, yeah, it just is.
Well, I mean, we all judge. And if you judge, you're you're an immediate hypocrite. And, I think that might be the biggest issue in America is how much we fucking judge. We can't look at anything without having some sort of judgment. And that's because of the conditioning. Because we see something on TV or we're taught something and we see something different than what we're indoctrinated with. And all of a sudden we feel a certain kind of way about it. We got to say something about it or we got to separate ourselves from something else. So we're ultimately hypocrites, ultimately, judging. And to me, that's shit. That might be the foundation of all this shit, man. If we could, now easier said than done. We all do it. But I will notice, and I have noticed this, like, when you start getting on this journey and you start seeing the world for what it truly is, you start to catch yourself judging, and then you start to eliminate those things slowly but surely. You know what I'm saying?
So hard.
Oh, it is. Me and the queen, man, all the fucking time, bro. We'll catch each other. And have you guys watched Ted Lasso before?
No.
Oh man, watch that fucking show.
Gotta watch that.
Like a feel good fucking show. Anyways, he says something about, he's telling a story and he's talking about like how somebody judged him. And I guess, what did he say? He said he says, be curious, don't be judgmental. I think something like that. Be curious, don't be something else. I think it might, something like judgmental. And that's what me and the queen always say to each other if we catch each other judging. She's like, no, be curious. Don't be judgmental. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're curious, you just want to know why they're different. Well, okay, why'd that person decide to wear that shirt today? You know what I'm saying? Why'd that person decide to eat a fucking Big Mac with a large fry and a fucking milkshake? You know what I'm saying? Be curious. Don't be judgmental.
Yeah, my daughter and I were sitting there and we were eating during one of the CrossFit competitions that my son was at. And we noticed that we started,
by the way. I'm sorry,
talking about people. We started talking about people and judging. And then we both realized it at the same time. And we looked at each other. We're like, oh, shit, well, we got to work on ourselves. And we started laughing because we realized, when you judge others, it's really about yourself. So ultimately, if you change yourself, you change the world. Because that's really the only way that it's going to change, is becoming aware of every time that we judge. It's becoming aware of what it is that we're judging, because ultimately it comes back to us. And just like I said, put a mirror in front of yourself. That's really, it just comes back to you, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna double tap that. Hypocrisy tip too, and I'm gonna give an example. So, what's that show with? Is it The Bachelor, where the women compete for one man? Now, most women, like, no, you fucking crazy. If they were in that environment, they'd be like, fuck him, right?
Right.
So you have entertainment opposing your own beliefs, yet there's a desire to watch it. The hypocrisy in it.
Yeah, the women want to watch a guy with a bunch of girls, but yet in real life,
they don't want no guy.
No, it don't work that way.
Nope.
Right? So why does that exist? It's hypocritical. Most institutions, most shit we experience in the United States is really hypocrisy when you break it down. So if you're living in a constant state of hypocrisy, it's only a matter of time before you tap out, man. You just gotta give in and you become hypocritical. It just seeps into you because it's normal, right? Because it's been normalized. Like, it's normal for kids to eat fucking 8 pounds of sugar for breakfast. Why? Because we did it.
Yep.
And I ain't got no problem with it. I did it. I'm good. Yep. I'm healthy.
Yeah,
as I'm taking 3 prescriptions.
Right. Oh my gosh! If I could tell you how many times I've heard people say, "Well, look at me. I'm fine. What's wrong with me?" You know what I'm saying? You know, allowing their kids to do things that they did instead of trying to help them be better. They want them to follow the same line. So
That's the ego
And I
right there.
have,
They just their identity don't want to get
yeah, and
crushed.
I have a need to get on a soapbox for a minute, all right? Because if you in your upper 30s or in your 40s and you looking at yourself going, I still got it. You know, you're not taking care of yourself. You know you're going down that path of wherever, of just not being healthy, but you hanging on to your youth. Yo, please wake the fuck up. All right? Like take responsibility for your fucking health and realize that each year that you get older after 40, like time speeds up. You feel me? Like your degradation speeds up, you know, and the deeper you dig into that hole, the harder it is to get out. And I think it's a beautiful metaphor for exactly the state of America. Like we deep, man. We deep, and it's hard to get out of it. But that's part of it too. It's all everything happens in cycles. And that's why we here, right?
Yeah.
To talk to the people that are on the same level as us, hopefully.
America
Hopefully
just
to,
had its rebirth with Pluto, you know,
yeah.
going back. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be having a lot of changes. I mean, the whole world is gonna have a lot of changes, and I think ultimately you have to hit rock bottom in order to realize what's messed up and what needs to be changed. And I always see that as the cycles, the seasons, the fucking ages, the forever cycle. But like you said, you're in this lifetime, we're gonna do our part, and hopefully, you know, the
Yep.
next one does their part, and each cycle does their part.
and
That's really all we can
you
do.
know, the irony is that it's worse now than it's ever been, right? Especially in America. But people like us have more platforms than we ever did. So it's like we're combating something like this growing monster, and we have the tools to do it. You know, it's just based on, okay, so how far can we reach, you know, to ultimately combat this monster, this David versus Goliath type of contrast that's going on right now. And, you know, that's why it's important for everybody out there when we talk about products of America, like what type of product are you? Look in the mirror, do that self audit. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
don't attach yourself to this groupthink mindset to, you know, to ultimately look at someone like me when I talk about eating raw fruit or being a raw vegan as somebody who's trying to push an agenda. No, I'm not pushing an agenda. I'm trying to help the betterment of society. So drop the ego, drop that attachment to the label, because all your friends think it's cool to eat meat and eat burgers and eat all these fucking foods that are causing acid inside your body and eating away at everything. You know what I'm saying? Like drop that mindset and understand and be open-minded. You don't have to agree with me, but at least be open-minded. If there's anything that you walk away from this show from me, is that, like, if you're a product, you know, all of us are products of America, but be an open-minded product. Be a product that could adjust, that can, you know, assimilate, that can ultimately, fuck, I don't even know the word. That can ultimately blend, man. That can change. That can be multifaceted. Because that's what's gonna make the change, man. That's what's gonna help this world, and then our kids can do their part, and we got to do our part by instilling those values in these kids. You guys have done an amazing job just by the stories you guys tell me. I'm trying to do the same thing with my youngin', my teenager. I don't know what the fuck's going on. That one's a little tough, but my youngin', she on it. She ready. So we'll see.
Yeah, man. But you know, Joanna mentioned this earlier, and I want to dovetail on it too. You know, change yourself, change the world, right? Like, man, if everyone truly accepted that as their mantra and just worried about the fucking mirror and that was it, right? You'd have an instant, like, it's almost like lights going off when the power comes back on. You know what I mean? Like people would light up, like taking responsibility for your actions, taking responsibility for your health, taking responsibility for your body, for your mind, for your family, for your situation, for your fucking attitude, for everything.
Your own saving.
Is something that, you know, is so freeing, yet it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. Right? It's like the fucking Peace Corps. Right? But Yeah, man. So it's change yourself, change the world. You got fucking issues. Work on your own shit. And if you work on your own shit and worry about your own shit and teach your kids how to worry about their own shit, then suddenly we could reverse this, right?
Right, little by little. And I think if you were to ask me the type of people that, as in the type of person that America has produced in me, like myself, it started off with believing this whole, we have a free country, and it's freedom, the whole freedom thing. And the more you looked into it, the more you realized how much freedom there really wasn't. And because of that, it made me fight more for freedom, like true freedom and sovereignty. And so, if anything, the misconception of the label of freedom pushed me into wanting true freedom.
That's beautiful.
You know what proliferated that too? Like if you international travel, like to another country, or like much, like not like Canada or Mexico, but like
I mean, I think the farthest I've been
Europe or South America.
I have not. No, not yet.
Well, even still, like we've been to Indonesia and whatever, but the
Different
experience going through other countries' security versus coming back to the United States was super noticeable for me.
Oh my God, yes.
Right? Super noticeable. Now, again, we're the land of the free. There's a Goody Mob song. I can't remember. I think the Goody Mob song was named Cell Therapy. Right? And there was a line he says in there. He says, I can't. Yes, and he says, I can't figure out if the gates were put to keep crime out or keep our ass in. Yeah. Right? And it begs the question. Right?
That's very true.
For your mind, Neil.
That is
damn, y'all free. Fuck, I got to go through this. Woo.
It's so true.
Yeah, man. Meanwhile, you walk out of the Bali Indonesian airport and it's like, hi. It's all welcoming.
Oh, and everybody's so freaking grateful and just so peaceful and just, man, I wanted to move there. And then you go by London and it would forget that. They almost called security on my ass in London. And then, because I was just like, seriously? And then you come back here and I'm like, I mean, I wrote this in my book. Like, they were like robots. It just felt so robotic, just ego-driven. I'm the boss of everybody. I make the rules type of attitude. It's like you're human just like all the other people in all the other countries that were super nice to me. Why are you any different?
Yep.
And when you see that and you travel around the world and you notice those differences, you got to ask yourself why. I don't know. Because of everything we just said.
Yep. No, I mean, America has separated itself from the world because of ego, because of the entitlement. I think is a very powerful word that is embedded in American government as well as the average American, because like the average American feels entitled. That's where the xenophobia comes in. That's why everything is everybody else's fault but ours.
And that's where the spiritual comes in. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I'll say this last thing and then I'll pass it to you. Is this shit's karmic? You know what I'm saying? Like, look what America had to do to become what it's become. To become the quote unquote land of the free. Off of whose backs? How many people have died? How many cultures have been severed? You know what I'm saying? And now it's starting to come to pass, and that obviously has spiritual consequences.
So bouncing off spirituality, you look at the East and they're very spiritual, but they lack the material part, right? And you look at the West over here and we're very much about the material, very much about the physical world, but we lack in the spiritual and the non-physical world. So there's this off balance in the entire world that, we've been known to be the babies, the baby souls in the United States. We're just babies. We don't know much. And so that's where the whole entitlement, like if you were just to describe America, it's a teenager. It's like it thinks it knows everything. But it doesn't. You know, it's just I feel like it's at a teenage stage on a soul level, and that's because the rest of the world needs to. You know, we all just need to find that balance.
Yo, you know,
by coming together.
In my own experience, it's amazing to me how kids these days, at least my kids, my son specifically, will find a way to make me feel stupid even though he's wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll give you an example. You know, I said he brought me something, and I was like, "Oh, you're paying recompense?" And he was like, "What? What word is that? How do you say it?" And I was like, "Look it up, man." And we look it up. He said it. The volume recompense said it. I'm like, what? He turned it on me like I was stupid, even though he didn't know what the fuck I was saying, right? But I think it speaks to what you're saying, right? It's like there's just this direction where a 16-year-old kid thinks he knows more than a 45-year-old man that has lived his life plus another couple other phases, and I think I know better than you. How the fuck could you possibly think that unless you were fucking brainwashed on some level? That don't even make no damn sense. But it goes back to, again, too, you know, talking about the family structure. I wanted to bring this up earlier real quick. You know, we've been taught that the elderly have become dispensable, right? Like, it's almost like subconsciously, like we keep them alive, right? We keep them in rest homes and we disconnect them because we don't have time to take care of them, right? Well, how does that relate to my son's sort of, you know, slight disrespect of my experience? Has some relation, right? Because that, again, has been taught over the years, especially I think over since really our generation and probably maybe a generation before that, the degradation of old people. Nah, man, those should be the people that we should be talking to, right? Those are the people that we should be finding out their experiences. Because I guarantee you, they was like, yep, we've seen all this before, right? But nah, we stick them in rest homes and pretend like they have issues. And then we create a fucking diet that causes Alzheimer's so that the motherfuckers can't tell you that this shit has already happened, right? Come on, man.
Hey,
wake the fuck up.
Look, people, you know, and I know we got to wrap this up, but like people, we're libraries at the end of the day. So our elders, they are fucking libraries. You know what I'm saying? So like with the diet and the mortality rate being, you know, only 76 and, you know, in America, and us treating them that way and putting them in homes, like we're burning down libraries. At the end of the day, you know, I mean, can you imagine? Like, think about someone who's in their 80s and 90s. How much fucking all they've experienced, how much knowledge they have. They could speak on this shit from so many different viewpoints, because they've been through so many regime changes and power changes, and just they've seen things in this world that we couldn't even fathom. Yet we treat them like you said, like they're expendable. And
shit, I know how much I know, and I'm 40 years in, and that's like double my life. I can't imagine, like.
Yeah, you imagine talking to a woke motherfucker that went through the Great Depression, World War I, World War II, the assassination of Kennedy, the creation
I'd be like, look,
NASA.
I am now a walking library. Please go to my website and check me out.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they should have podcasts for elders. They should, you know what I'm saying? Can you imagine the stories, man? That's why every time I meet someone, I meet someone, you know, older, like through, you know, family or something like that, I always ask them about, oh, what was it like, you know, when Kennedy was killed? I want to know what it was like. I want to know, like what was going on? What were you watching? How did your family react? I want to know all that shit. Like that, to me, like that is important stuff.
You know, they always ask the question, you know. Yeah, and you ask the question, right? Like, who would you invite to dinner? And, you know, I used to have these dumbass answers like, well, like maybe, I don't know. We said,
let's skip that.
We agreed on some people, but ultimately now it's like, damn, I want to invite somebody who's lived through all that shit. I might have to bring them back to life.
Our answers are totally different. Mm-hmm. No, than what they used to be as far as who we would bring to dinner. Yeah.
I thought you were insulting me.
No. I was saying, like,
I was trying to figure it out. I'm like, what does she mean?
I know you looked at me weird. No. It was the people that we would invite to dinner are totally different.
But yeah, that would be a dope ass conversation. They got to be woke though. If they're not woke,
I don't want to hear it, because then it would be very, very.
And like worldly perspective, like I'd like to know what somebody who was alive in the 20s, 30s, and 40s from a different outside country, what was their viewpoint of World War II? and the Nazis and Hitler and Winston Churchill and all that? Like, what was their perspective? Because we only get the American perspective. You know what I'm saying? I'd love to see that shit.
Bro, you know, the Black Panther, right? Like, you remember that movie, the end of it, you know, when he realizes that that one action that his father took created that you know, that energy. And it's like, man, you think about all the shit and you know, it's wars, it's any kind of violence. Like, what you kill the right person's dad and he's a vengeance for life, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's happening time and time and time, like millions of times over.
Right.
All across the world. And it's just like, in the name of what?
So here's how we're going to end it. I think everybody should take this time to really think about, seriously, what America has produced in you. Like, who are you really? And is it a production of America? Is it a production of society? Is it a production of the family? Or is it just you? Like, who are you? Seriously, like, are you all these things? Or who are you? And that's just something that we implore you to ask yourself every time we do these podcasts, because that's really what it comes down to is if you know yourself, you know others, therefore you can easily recognize these patterns. So
yeah, and I think after you ask that question of who you are, ask yourself, is this who I want to be?
Yeah.
And is this who I want to become? Because that's when
the changes
some
need to
shit
happen.
happens, right?
Transformations.
That's right.
That's what's up. I love it. I love it. Good stuff, y'all.
All right. Well, we're out and we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.